today I thought we would just talk a little bit more about what you guys would like to get out of these calls. This is really, it's not about me. It's however I can do to help you. I know, okay, John's coming in. Oh, we haven't met John before. That's awesome. So I know Jessica for sure, and I think maybe Danielle have been on Matt's calls on Thursday from the independent consulting TIG. And it's just so happens that, you know, we kind of had this idea simultaneously and both kind of announced about the same time. So I don't want to duplicate what Matt is doing. But before I go further, let me welcome John to the call. And John, do you want to introduce yourself since we haven't met yet?
Yeah, my name's John Sevier. I'm an evaluation student here at Claremont Graduate University. Just really sitting in to try to figure out where the initiatives are and how I can best help.
Okay, awesome. All right, well, thank you, John. So this is our second call, and last week we kind of kept it pretty high level, I think, or maybe I was just nervous and didn't take good notes, which is entirely possible. So I want to talk a little bit more about what you would like to get out of these meetings and what the structure might be. So I'm practicing with my Zoom poll. So let's see if this works. So I have this, so my first question is, as you think about starting out, what is your biggest pain point or worry? It's a multiple choice question, so you can check all the apply, or if, you know, my choices are not on here, you can choose the something else and we can talk about it. So can everybody see the poll? Awesome, great. Well, I'll give you a second while I turn around to see if Sadie has reappeared. Nope, she's still out there. Okay, all right, I think everybody is done. So I'm going to end the poll and we're going to share the results. Okay, so looks like number one is how to find clients, which is probably the thing that I am asked, you know, most often. So I've had to really kind of get thoughtful about that. And then let's see, next would be budgeting. Okay. I guess I should have been more clear. Setting the budget for a project, I guess, is really what I meant. And then writing a scope of work. So my idea was just kind of know maybe where to start the conversations so that I can kind of be better prepared kind of going forward. I mean, I can talk about some of the stuff like off the top of my head, but you also might want, you know, more structure. So that brings me to, let's see, let me write a note here because I want to do the other poem and I want to maybe talk about this. Budgeting. And then we have SOW. Okay. All right. So I've got one other one that I want to. All right. Let me see if I can find it. Here we go. Cool. So this one is about a structure for the calls. And then we're going to talk about these things. So whether or not you want something, you know, I just want to go to a webinar, get the information. If you just want, you know, put me on the hot seat and just answer the questions or mix and match. Okay, so we have a mix. All right, so yeah, so we have three of you want like a mix of, specific information and then questions. Somebody wants a free for all, and somebody just wants, give me the facts, man. So if we, for those of you who've been on Matt's call that he's doing through the independent consulting TIG from AEA, so Matt usually spends like 10 or 15 minutes like on a specific topic and then kind of opens it up for discussion. I don't really want to repeat what Matt is doing because I don't want you to get the same information, although we're very different people and we have, we serve very different audiences. So I'm really kind of open for ideas. So for those of you who said a mix, not to put you on the spot, can you talk more about what you envision would be the most helpful?
I guess I was thinking it could maybe have like themes for the weeks of like, okay, we're going to talk about, any of the items that we voted on in the last poll, or if people wanted to make suggestions, but it could be kind of like bring your questions about client relationships, or bring your questions about, I don't know, starting your business, or things like that. And then if you have any words of wisdom for us on those items, you could definitely share them, but there wouldn't have to be a lot of pressure. I feel like I really appreciate you opening up your office hours to everyone. So I don't want you to feel like, a pressure to put on a big presentation each time.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
And I would even add to that if there were questions, like an opportunity to submit questions about that topic ahead of time, in addition to in the moment. I don't know if that would help you better prepare, as well as, like for me, I think that would help me start thinking about what would I even want to get out of that session potentially. But then also in the moment, as talking about things, of course, other questions might come up.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that would help me too, to know, kind of what the needs are, and, have more thoughtful answers. Anybody else? So Jessica, any concerns, since I know I've seen you on Matt's calls at all, that it's going to be too repetitious for you? I certainly don't want to be stepping on, Matt's gig.
I mean, I certainly can't speak for everyone. I feel like I am new enough to kind of doing evaluation, at least, outside of the academic setting, that I can't get enough information. I'm happy to, hear, his take on a topic. And I think especially since you've been on a lot of his calls, you're kind of aware of some of the things that have been talked about. I think I've only been, I guess he might have done one or two before I joined in, but I think there's definitely, a lot of topics he hasn't covered, and probably even on the topics he has, since not everyone in this group has been on those calls, they might, everyone else might raise questions that weren't discussed and things like that. So I definitely can't speak for everyone on Matt's calls, but I certainly would not be offended by a little repetition as someone who's kind of just getting started.
Okay, awesome. Thanks. Yeah, and even though I've been doing this a minute, I'm still learning. I'm still learning. I'm still making mistakes, and that's just that's the nature of the work. And when I started my business years ago, I don't know about you guys, but I'm really bad at beating myself up when I make a mistake. So I gave myself permission. I will make mistakes, and that's okay, right? The world is not going to end. We're not doctors or nurses. We're not going to kill somebody if we make a mistake. If the worst mistakes we make is we have a typo in a report, it's not great. It doesn't make me happy. I really hate it, but nobody's going to die, right? At least not in the evaluation I do. Maybe you guys, but not me. So yeah, so I'm still learning. I think it's really important to stay humble and I don't know. I had a grade school elementary teacher who said, you know, you shouldn't go to bed at night without learning something new. Can you believe I still remember that? She was my second grade teacher, and I still remember that. So yeah, I'm open to that. Okay, that's really helpful, because I think it would help me to better prepare. I didn't necessarily have a topic today other than just getting a better idea of what people were expecting, because I'm really doing this as a service. It's really for you. It's not for me. So yeah. So one more thing, and then we'll maybe we'll start talking about finding clients, and then I can think about maybe some more formal ways, more formal things. So I set up a Google folder. Did everybody get an invitation to that?
Yes.
I hope you did. So what I did is I took the business plan that I did last week. Let me see. Oh, yay. I'm always surprised. I go to share a screen and I have like 10 million screens open, and sometimes I'm nervous and I can't find it. So, okay. All right, hold on. I don't want to share that. I want to share this. Okay. We're gonna have a Zoom fail here. Okay, can you see my PowerPoint that is not the PowerPoint that I want you to see? This is
Yeah.
And for some reason it is not opening. Oh, that's so annoying, because it's showing up on my screen. Okay, hold on, ladies. Okay, I cannot minimize apparently. All right, well, I'm not going to take the time. I don't know what my PowerPoint has been doing funky things this morning. Very strange. Maybe if I close that one. Hold on. All right. So I said that, and now I'm going to still try, because I'm annoyed. I'm nothing if not persistent. I went to graduate school with a lot of people who were a lot smarter than me, but okay, I don't know. My PowerPoint is totally misbehaving. I probably need to reboot. But anyway, what I did is I took my the business plan template that I showed you last week, and I just took all the guts out of it and left it as a template for you to use. So for those of you who were not on the call, I basically I just created a PowerPoint deck and did a very visual business plan. And what I told everybody is, I knew I wasn't going to the bank to get funding. It didn't need to be something formal. I just wanted it to be something that would inspire me. So I just took all the details out and left it as a template. I wrote a blog for AEA 365 a couple of weeks ago, and I talk about the template, and in there I kind of list some of the things that that I didn't necessarily include, that are probably more like on the financial end of it, that I didn't need that for this business plan. So I also mentioned last time that I did write a business plan when I started the business like a million years ago, and then I never looked at it again. I feel like this one I'm going to use. One, it's more visual, so it's more interesting because I'm a visual learner. And it helps me focus in on the clients that I'm trying to reach. So there's that. So use it, adopt it, don't use it. Google business plans, you're going to see lots of different models. I think the main thing is to really focus in on your core values and yourself as a consultant or an evaluator or whatever, however you envision yourself, who you are. I think we talked about last week that, or last time, that your brand is not what you say you are, it's what other people say you are. So spending some time thinking about that, and then thinking about your ideal customer. I think if you do nothing but those three things, you'll have gone a long way. Those are definitely things that were not in my business plan originally that I just learned about recently. So use the template if you find it helpful. And as we kind of are talking, I'll put stuff in there. Stuff, that's a very professional word. I'll put things in there that I think might be helpful or related to the topics that we talk about. So sound good? Any questions about that? Okay, awesome. And yeah, so why don't we talk about how to find clients? So I get asked this question a lot. I think the way I answer this question going forward may be changing, but I'll tell you how I have typically found clients in the past. So I may have told you the story, I may not have. So when I was trying to decide if I was going to start my own business, I did have some encouragement, from friends, and I had a colleague that was at the CDC, and she said, now mind you, this was like 2004, and there's a lot more evaluators in the room than there used to be, but she said, just put your shingle out. You're going to have more work than you can possibly imagine. And that was kind of pretty much my experience. I had work from, the get-go. And I think if you do really good work, because there's a lot of bad evaluation out there, at least where I am, not necessarily in the Atlanta area, but I would say like in some of the less populated areas of the state. And I do work nationally. We've had a couple of international projects, but most of what I do is in Georgia. If you do really good work, people recognize that and they tell other people. So a lot of our work is word of mouth. And then when you do good work, of course, your client's really happy and they tell people who are, like themselves. So that is probably not the answer that you like, especially if you're just kind of, getting started. But that truly is how my business has grown. It helps that I am in the Atlanta area, and that the CDC is here, at least for now. we'll see if they survive. It's a tough place to work. But I did have some colleagues in the CDC, and that was helpful. So I got some subcontracts, things like that. That's probably those two avenues are probably how I really got my start. Going forward, as I look about how the business will be shifting in the next couple of years, I see myself doing maybe a podcast, maybe some online classes, and then that's going to require a whole different kind of marketing that I really, up to this point, have not been really comfortable, right? I'm not really a selfie kind of girl, right? It's just not my style. So, but using social media is something we have started doing even years ago. So that is an effective way to reach folks that you want to reach. But you have to do all of that homework that we already talked about. What's your mission and vision? Who are you? What is your brand? What are your clients? All of that kind of thinking really reflects my kind of new learning, and as I, work to kind of shift the business. So that was a lot, and maybe a whole lot of nothing. I'm not sure. So I'm going to hush now and see if you have some specific questions about finding clients, or maybe some things that you've tried that have been successful or not successful. And you can always use the chat, and I'll try to remember to monitor it if for some reason you don't want to say it out loud. Any particular questions? Jessica, I see you thinking.
I feel like I should formulate my question a little better than last time.
Oh gosh, did we talk about this and I've already forgotten?
I feel like last time, I remember you mentioning that, you've worked in clinical practice before, because you're very good at reading faces, and last time you said the same thing, like, I can see you thinking, and I just started, blurting without an actual question in mind. You should contemplating, I guess.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, you should have heard me introduce myself on the last call. If I have no advice for you at all, if you don't get anything else, figure out how to introduce yourself, because I'm still working on it, and I've been around a minute. So anyway, go ahead, Jessica.
I feel like introductions are always a tough one for me, because I'm like, well, I'm doing academia stuff now, but I'm leaving, I swear. I'm like coming to the side of life.
Maybe we'll
I guess
practice.
what I was, yeah, right, exactly. I guess what I was kind of contemplating was thinking about how to sort of break out of the circles. You know, if you're trying to do something new, which for me is just kind of escaping the academic research end and moving into practice. I know that I have opportunities where I can do some subcontracting with, you know, my current collaborators, and I do feel, you know, comfortable with that research. So I definitely don't want to, you know, discard the opportunity to have maybe slightly more reliable or consistent, you know, projects that I seem like I should have some flexibility in terms of the hours that I need to work on them. I'm trying to think about how I can best sort of break into new circles, because I think that I have had some good luck with, you know, kind of my current colleagues recommending me to kind of other people within the university system. And I probably could, you know, go beyond my current university and continue collaborating with Extension, you know, in that same sort of sphere. But I am interested in kind of breaking into some new circles and kind of finding new groups of clients that are untapped. So again, that's probably not even a question, just like last week. But that's what I was thinking about.
Have you identified who the new clients are?
Well, I feel like I'm still a little open-ended with that. I've done a couple of projects with nonprofits, a couple of projects more kind of on the industry end of things. But I feel like I don't, to some degree, I don't have enough, you know, I can't generalize my experience with one nonprofit to all nonprofits, and I can't generalize my experience with a couple industry partners. So I feel like I'm still a little, like I'm at the doing research part of that phase almost. I might not even be ready to reach out to a new potential client yet. It's more even figuring out, and that comes back to the business plan and kind of what you've spoken about, and kind of identifying, you know, who you want to be serving. So I guess maybe I'm just articulating out loud that I'm still kind of at that phase and trying to figure out, you know, what are, you know, the pros and cons of working in different, kind of different arenas. And I also am pretty open about, you know, discipline wise, you know, having experience in public health and also psychology and education, kind of feeling like I've enjoyed the variety that I've been able to have so far. So trying to narrow and figure out, you know, what are the reasons that I feel like I'm passionate about a lot of things, and what should I be using as my my criteria for figuring out, you know, who's going to be a good target client for me, what would be a good fit, and even, you know, where I can kind of find information about differences between, you know, collaborating with, you know, different entities and organizations.
Okay. Anybody else kind of want to kind of add on to that, or any of that, what Jessica was talking about resonate? I've been taking notes along the side, so I actually have some things to say about that. Who knows?
The nonprofit learning lab, they provide different workshops at different locations. And the reason why I suggest that is you can either participate or you could be a facilitator of a given topic. And that may provide as a segue for you not only to meet other people, but to meet other nonprofit staff members.
Okay, thank you.
Danielle, do you have access to a computer where you could put that link in the chat? That might be helpful. I actually haven't heard of that one either. And I remember last time Danielle had lots of good tips for us. So I don't know if she heard me or not. So anybody else have any follow-up to Jessica's questions, or does that resonate with you? Okay. All right. Well, I will jump in here. So that was a lot. So how to break into new circles. And I want to say you're in Champaign. Is that right? Yeah, I remember, because I think I told you that Susan and I had done a workshop up there. Susan Wolf and I had done a workshop in March before all the doo-doo hit the fan. So a couple of things, and it's definitely more difficult since we're all virtual, right? So I love Danielle's idea about the nonprofit learning lab, and I'm gonna have to look into that because I don't know anything about that. And nonprofits is definitely one of my areas. I think I told you guys I'm the co-chair of the Nonprofit Foundation TIG. When I look at a list of my clients, though, I don't have as many nonprofits as I would like. That is a group that I really enjoy working with, and they're really, you know, needy and overwhelmed typically. I find. The evaluation capacity is can be lacking, right? They've got some executive directors have so much on their plate. So one thing that I have just recently learned about, and maybe you guys knew about this thing called Facebook groups. So there are some nonprofit type groups on Facebook. Oh, great. Thanks, Rochelle. Rochelle just put the link in the chat. Awesome. So, so that's something that I have recently done just to kind of get a better pulse on what's going on in the nonprofit world. So there's, I don't want to like pick up my phone and get distracted, but it's, there's like a nonprofit consulting group. There's a couple of different ones that I have found. And, you know, the idea with a group is that you're contributing as well as, you know, responding to other people. But, and I've only been doing it a couple of weeks. I do think it may be helpful in kind of understanding kind of the pain points of what nonprofit executive directors and staff are going through. That will really help you as a consultant to kind of think about how you might be able to help. So then, you know, LinkedIn is not the fuddy-duddy that it used to be. So using LinkedIn to connect with people who are in whatever, you know, lane you're trying to offer your services. So nonprofits, for example, that's a really good way to do it. Posting and sharing is great, but you can also create your own content on LinkedIn. So something that I've learned recently is if you just, because this is what I used to do, is here's my new blog and put that on LinkedIn. But because of the way LinkedIn does their algorithms, your post may not be getting as much views as if you posted it as an article, because there's a little button and you can click, you know, write an article. So use that instead, use visuals, and then put some tags, you know, nonprofit, whatever, leaders, whatever your, you know, whatever your article is about and whose attention you're trying to get. So, you know, do those hashtags right at the end to get a track. So that's something you'll see me doing more of. Jessica talked about subcontracting. That's a great way to get your foot in the door and start building your portfolio. I'll just tell you, this is my personal opinion. If you're going to subcontract, I would talk to whoever you're subcontracting with about how you present that on your website. So that's one thing. If you don't have a website, you need one, right? Make that a priority. But ask the person you're subcontracting with if they're comfortable with you listing it and how you should list it. I think it's honest if you're subcontracting to say in partnership with whatever company, CES or ICF or whatever it is. I only say that because I have seen people that have subcontracted with me put my client on their website. That's kind of irritating. To me, that's not kosher, right? So yeah, so be careful about that. But yeah, so website, blog posts. If you don't have a blog, consider it. If it doesn't feel like that's kind of where you want to spend your time, then you might, you know, volunteer to be an AEA 365 blogger. If you're going to blog, you need to do it pretty frequently. I know I have not always been as frequent, but I'm trying to get up to every 2 weeks to eventually do every week. Some people are all about the visual and the videos. And I just joined a coaching class for public speaking, believe it or not. And yeah, so it's the first professional development I've done like that, that's sort of kind of marketing. And she's all about virtual stages and videos. And I already told you I'm not a selfie girl. So this is gonna hurt. You guys are probably all younger than me. And so maybe that's not a big deal to you, but to me, it's going to be a stretch to do anything like that. But, you know, we're also ADD right now. We don't like to read. So I had a client the other day. Rochelle, you weren't in the meeting. So Rochelle works for me. She's my research associate. So I'm on a client call yesterday, and we're doing a debrief with a client on a PowerPoint report. We don't really write 100-page reports. We really try not to do that. And so sometimes for little surveys, we'll just do a PowerPoint report. The summary was a paragraph. And she's like, I love it, except for the last page. You made me read. It was the one page. I'm just saying that we're all kind of ADD. We kind of like snippets now, and we like GIFs or GIFs or however you call it, and we like videos. So think about that. Virtual conferences, that's a great way to get yourself out there and establish yourself as an expert. So, you know, if there is a nonprofit summit, you know, speaking to Jessica, and others of you who are interested in nonprofits, see if there are some virtual conferences you can do. I just got asked to speak to a virtual conference on data visualization, and that's kind of interesting. I mean, we do good data viz. I mean, I think we do. I don't consider myself like an expert in that area, but I will use it to, you know, talk about what we do as a business. Yeah, and getting back to LinkedIn, recommendations on LinkedIn, asking people to recommend you, right? So you can endorse, but people can also recommend. So, yeah, and then we talked, I just mentioned the website. So let me ask you guys, does everybody have a website?
I don't. I'm not gonna lie. I haven't started the whole consulting thing yet. However, it is a distal goal. Not distal, but maybe, yeah, that's maybe I'll ask that question afterwards, but I don't currently have a professional website.
What about everybody else? Nope.
I have a personal website, I guess. So I have like myname.com, but I feel like I haven't been able to start my consulting website. Need to name my business, and that's been my stumbling block.
Gotcha. And Danielle says she didn't. Madison, what about you?
Yeah, I have a personal, but not the consulting. I'm still in the early stages of figuring out what that would look like. Well,
so something for you to think about for your brand is, are you your brand, or are you going to have a company name? I just, to be perfectly honest, I was just not bold enough to have my name as the brand. There's nothing wrong with having Jessica Metcalf Consulting or Madison's, let me try, Staskowich?
Yeah, that's right.
What? Yay for me, right? Or John Sevier, is that how?
Sevier, it was close enough.
Sevier, okay. It's very French, I love it, right? So all of you can have that as your brand and as your company name. There's nothing wrong with that. If you look at Gail Barrington's website, and we've talked about Gail, you've heard about Gail probably, her book, Management Consulting Startup. It's Gail, right? She's got a new website, gorgeous picture of, it's all Gail, right? My friend Susan, the name of her company is Susan Wolf and Associates. So don't feel like you've got to have like some name. I mean, I don't know, somewhere deep inside me, I had this name for my company. So that's what it is. So don't let that be a stumbling block. And even for those of you who are, you know, still in school and really just getting started, I'm going to tell you a story. So we have friends, and their son is a sommelier in New York City, And when he was little, and I mean little, like 10 or 11, 12 maybe, he started a column in the local newspaper called The Food Dude. He already knew he wanted to be a chef. So he started talking about food and making recipes, and they put him in the local paper. I grew up in Fort Walton Beach, so this is like the Fort Walton Beach paper. And he interviewed a pretty famous chef that had a restaurant in Destin, Florida. And when he was like 14, started working with this guy in the kitchen, peeling potatoes and making salads and setting up the dessert plates, things like that. When he was just a teenager and had done nothing, he created his own website. I'm telling you, there he is, and he's got his little chef's hat and his little chef's coat, and he's all that, right? So sometimes you have to act as if until you're there. I'm just telling you that. I'm telling you that as, a kind of neurotic introvert, that sometimes you just have, people always say, oh, you're so extroverted. Like, no, that's really not true. I've just learned to fake it really well. So get your website up and going. I'm about to redo mine. It'll be the third time that I've redone mine. So it's not like you're going to do your website and you're never going to do it again. It doesn't have to be perfect. It can be real. I like websites now because they're super simple and clean. They're not busy. So yeah, get it out there. Get your website going. Sorry, I think I went down a rabbit hole. Okay, I think Danielle dropped off and now she's back here. So yeah, so get that website going. You can be thinking about all of these things, and that'll inspire some of your website, the about us, what you stand for, your values. If you have any papers or products or presentations that you can, PDF and put on your website. A lot of things, a lot of times you'll see these days, I'm sure you've all seen it, when you're on a website and you scroll down and it says, sign up for my email list, right? Or sign up for my newsletter. I used to have sign up for my newsletter on my website, and I had my web guy take it off because I feel like newsletters are so like, last decade, nobody wants a newsletter. But in marketing, there's this whole big thing on emails and writing emails. And so that's one thing that I would encourage you write off. And that is part of getting clients, is to start building your contact list now. That you have a group of, don't do what I did. Did we talk about this last time? Tell me if I'm repeating myself. Did I tell you about my contact list and my email list? Okay. So I've been doing, all this new marketing research that I've never done before, because remember, it was all word of mouth. I downloaded my Outlook contacts and I had something like 3,000 plus. And I had about, I don't know, maybe 100 on my MailChimp, list. Yeah, that's a problem. That's a real problem. So don't do what I did. Start building your email list now. And the way you do that is by writing those blogs and those articles and all those kinds of things to get yourself out there.
Can I ask you a question? All right, so like
Yes,
I'm new to the eval world. I've done some evaluative work in the past that I found Claremont, but I have done web marketing in the past, and like a term that I think is used in nonprofits as well as in web development is community-based asset development. I might have some of those words flipped, but I'm curious. Okay, so for social media, building a brand, recognize. I never really thought of building a brand as like your program theory for everybody else that interacts with your business, right? So I really appreciate you throwing down that quote. That was it was catchy and it was useful for me. How often do you and your the people you work with closely kind of share content? You know what I mean? Like, is that a thing that people do to like build exposure within the field of evaluation? Because it happens all the time on social media, right? In other industries, and
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't know if that was a common practice or not. Is that a thing?
You mean like if I write a blog post or something, how common is it that people in my field share it, or people in my
Yeah,
contact
yeah,
share it?
all the time. Yeah, for sure. Like, say I don't like. All right, like best practices are you post 2 things a day, one in the morning, one at night. But like obviously every field can't do that, or like every professional can't, especially if you're new and up and coming. It's not really is that okay in our field? Is that something that happens?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very okay. I mean, there are, Sheila Robinson somewhere has a list. I don't know if you know who Sheila Robinson is, but she's the curator of AEA 365. Her and Kim Leonard just wrote a book last year on survey design that's excellent. But Sheila has a list somewhere about like evaluators on Twitter, and there are a lot. And so you will see evaluators sharing each other's stuff, especially these days, because we're having so many conversations about racism and being anti-racism, a racist. And so there's a lot of rich conversations going on in the evaluation field. So yeah, we share each other's stuff all the time. I'm in a mastermind group from the Independent Consulting TIG, which is the topical interest group, John. And that's kind of the little engines that drive AEA. The mastermind program basically puts you into a small group with other people who are about where you are in your independent consulting practice. And so as a group, we've all kind of made that commitment that we will share each other's information. So if I see anybody on my mastermind group, if they've tweeted it, if they put it on LinkedIn, if they put it on Facebook, we're sharing it, we're liking it, we're doing all that stuff to promote them. I think probably evaluators, probably more than any other profession, are super giving. That's not to say that we don't compete with each other. We do, but we're also really giving and sharing. There's plenty of evaluation to go around for everybody. So yeah, definitely, that's okay. You guys could make that an agreement, right? You should note each other's names. You should be, when this call is over, you should be connecting on LinkedIn and all the other social medias and make that commit. I would just suggest that, make that commitment to each other, that when we see our stuff or stuff from, our other group members, whether it be here or Matt's group, that you're liking it, you're sharing it, and you're commenting and engaging. That would be really a lovely thing to do.
Thank you for answering that. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. So Jessica, is that list helpful at all in thinking about how to break into with new clients?
Yeah, absolutely.
Does it resonate with what conversations you've had in the other group, or
in the other like in Matt's group?
Matt's, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's helpful, you have a little bit of background on kind of where I'm at, and I feel like you knew who asked the questions. So you kind of gave me some great ideas, kind of more on that starting out end of things. And I think that's helpful as well. I think maybe on Matt's calls, there's probably a greater variety in terms of how much experience all of the attendees have. So I think that was helpful advice kind of geared towards, folks who are newer like me.
Now, the other thing that you all might want to take a look at, and I don't know the volume number off the top of my head, but there was a new directions and evaluation. I want to say it was like a year ago, and it was all about the evaluation marketplace. I'm sorry, I don't have the volume number off the top of my head, but there were lots of great articles, and it spoke to small shops like mine, where there's just, 3 of us and my son who does social media for me, and medium-sized shops and big shops. Melanie Hulick, who I believe is in Detroit, did a really great article about the different marketing strategies that independent consultants use. A lot of them I had never heard of before, up to and include, some I had, like cold calling, which I would never do. That's not in my, that I can't, I don't need to. We've got plenty of work. But yeah, not, it also just kind of doesn't fit who I am. But there's a whole long list of ways to market yourself that you might want to look at. And the other thing, and this is specific, I think, for nonprofits, is look in your, if nonprofit is your thing, and I don't know, Madison, John, and Danielle, kind of where you guys want to land, but if nonprofits is your thing, look in your state or your major cities and see if there is something akin to a center for nonprofits. Like here we have the Georgia Center for Nonprofits. There's also something similar in North and South Georgia, because it could be that you could offer to teach a class on evaluation, evaluation 101 for whatever your key audience is, whether that be nonprofits or not. I think if foundations are your niche, which is certainly one of mine, that's a little bit more difficult. Their conferences and meetings tend to be pretty closed. So if you are not a funder of some sort, then you don't go to that meeting unless you are invited. I've been to a couple, but I've been invited by a foundation client to present with them. That's something that's a little bit, harder to crack. Getting those clients, I think, largely comes from being seen as an expert in the field, which you do by doing all of those, blogging and writing, speaking on stages where you can, as well as responding to RFPs, which I find extremely frustrating. Just personally, and we can have a whole conversation about that. So Danielle put something in the chat. Danielle, do you want to say what that is? The evaluation blogs? Is that the list of all the bloggers? Okay.
Yeah,
awesome.
exactly. Uh-huh.
Awesome. Yeah. So yeah, take a look at the chats. So other questions about like finding clients, and we can have more conversations about this. Nope. Let's see, was there anything else that I had on my list to talk to you about? Okay, last few minutes. Any hot seat questions for me about anything?
I have a question.
Sure.
So you're talking about having a niche, and from what I'm being told over here in Claremont, it's the understanding that becoming specialized, wholeheartedly important in every field, all the time, everywhere, right? Being a generalist. Let me ask you this: How broad is your scope of practice, and do you feel like it's important to keep that scope tight, so to speak, or do you see people in the field that flourish under certain?
Yeah, and I think Jessica hit. Yeah, John, that's a great question. I know Jessica had kind of alluded to that, and I didn't talk about that. So thanks for bringing that up. I was told by the departmental chair at Georgia State when I was a graduate student that I was a generalist and I needed to specialize. And that was a million years ago now. I did not follow that advice. I consider myself a generalist. I think if you're a consultant, when somebody says, do you know how to do this? Most consultants will say yes, even if the answer is nope, but I can learn. I feel like I'm going to give you a yes and a no answer. I feel like our skill set is applicable no matter what the issue is, right? I think, the methods that we're all trained in are very applicable no matter what the social or public health problem is. To the scope of my work, if I thought about all these clients, and Rochelle might have to like ping in here if I forget some. So we have we have 2 drug-free communities. We have 4, which is federally funded. We have 4 alcohol substance abuse prevention projects. Those are state funded. We have a teen pregnancy prevention project, which is federally funded. We have a national association. We have a large public health foundation, the Hemophilia of Georgia it's a nonprofit. It's not a foundation, it's a nonprofit. Who am I missing? Am I missing anybody, Rochelle? Is that it? So it's a lot. I would say we're probably heavier on the substance abuse and mental health side. So I try to have a variety and not be too heavy in one area, just because I feel like that serves our longevity. However, I heard a conference keynote a couple of years ago, and they were talking about how much knowledge is doubling every few minutes, right? Just the knowledge that's out there in the world to know is just growing and growing and growing. And I find it, just difficult to keep up. The amount of professional development I feel like I need to do, like just on issues related to race equity, for example, right? Just all the thinking that has to go in to stay up on the issues that are important today are tremendous. So I don't think there's a right answer. I think there's a right answer for you. And maybe that has to do with what you're passionate about. I'm going to go with that. I don't think there's a right answer.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It seems to me, and at least in my quest to answer that question, it seems as if every field could really use has some kind of assessment, monitoring, or evaluation piece to it, and to like specialize, it's more like I see every professional in evaluation, at least at some point, like reaching in their career for newer projects, whether they be bigger or different topics at some point. And so I don't know, but at least like I'm familiar with Stuart Donaldson and like Michael Quinn Patton, and both of them did the same thing. So in some capacity, I mean, they have their niche and what they bring to evaluation, right? But I'm glad you said that. Thank you. That gave me some confidence.
Well, I think there's something to be said about being an expert in some things and getting known for that, but I also think that can be applied, to a lot of settings. And MQP is always reinventing himself, right? So we had utilization focused evaluation, and gosh, what came next? Was it principled or developmental? Developmental, principled. Now we have Blue Marble evaluation. I mean,
so many things. It's ridiculous.
Right, so many things. So and I love Stuart Donaldson's writing on extreme evaluation anxiety. I love, that he's wrote a couple articles on that. But he got known for like evaluation theory. It was what I remember. So. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely something to be said about finding your niche area, but I think that can be applied in a lot of different settings. But when you're just starting out, it probably is important to like, okay, I'm going to focus on nonprofit evaluation, or I'm going to focus on evaluation, or I'm going to focus on equitable evaluation. It's just not. I didn't do that. Maybe I'll do that going forward because it's getting hard to keep up.
Let me ask you this. What do you feel like, okay, so like with eval theories at least, do you feel like there's one that's more emergent than others, or like, I don't want to say trendy or not. I mean, because it has to fit context, right? But do you feel as if there's a theory that new evaluators should be focusing on as opposed to others? In that, you know what I mean? Is that a weird question?
No, I don't think that's a weird question. And, I think trends are, come and go, but I think one that is, has been bubbling and now is right there in front of us is equitable evaluation. And we all need to be on that train for all the right reasons.
Man, there's so many. I would love to start a discussion about like, I feel like all of that should be made common practice in every eval everywhere, like considering that it's a part of the competencies
Yes.
And on the evaluation tree, I feel like just the fact that it's on the tree kind of puts lip service to the practice, unless you're actually doing it
Yeah.
right consciously.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. All right, so we're over the hour. I'm trying to keep this to an hour just for everybody's sake. So we've talked about reaching clients. I don't know if that was enough, if you need more. So I would really appreciate it if you guys would shoot me an email and give me some feedback and some thoughts. Was that helpful? Do you need more of this, or you want me to talk about that? That would really help me, because I don't want to spend like forever like planning these things, but I'm happy to do them. All right, so I hope that was helpful. Take a look at the chat. You've got some links there. Yeah, have a good weekend, everybody. And yeah, shoot me an email. Let me know. Let me hear from you.
Thank you.
Great day.
All right, bye, everybody.
Thanks so much.
Go build
Bye,
your
everyone.
websites.